Hey everyone, you are now rocking with the Locked and Loaded RN. If you're new to my channel, bienvenidos. If you're one of my awesome subscribers, welcome back. Y'all, I finally got myself up out of bed, and today is a whopping 16 degrees. So that's why I look like this, y'all. Back when I was younger, I used to, not want to wear a winter coat or a hat or gloves. When you're too cool to be cold, so you rather wear a little hoodie and look cute, or a little jacket. And look at me now, y'all. My jacket is all the way down to my knees. Anyway, today's video is about 5 things I learned from working in the ICU as a nurse. So if you are not familiar with the acronym ICU, it stands for Intensive Care Unit. This is where the patients go that are very, very critical. So the other floors let's say if it's cardiac step down, or if it's rehab, different units, GI, whatever. This unit, ICU, is for people that are not looking good, or they just coded, or they look like they're about to code. They'll call the ICU in. If you guys know I love the show SWAT, I feel like ICU is the SWAT of nursing. That when it's really critical, they call the ICU nurses in, they swoop in, grab the patient, get them stable enough to travel back to the ICU. In any case, so this is the 5 things that I learned working in the ICU. Number 1, the importance of documentation. Every other job that I worked at since then, people complain about documentation, but to me, it's never anything that serious because I started in the ICU. In the ICU, you're literally charting everything on your patient from head to toe every hour. Not even every hour. It's technically, like, let's say the vitals, they're taking the vitals automatically every 15 minutes. You're taking their temperature though every hour. So the eyes and nose, the inputs and outputs, you have to record that every hour. The turns, of course, is Q2 turning. You have to make sure you're charting that you're turning them every 2 hours, back, right, left, back, like rotating them so that they don't get pressure injuries. Because they're more than likely, if it's a real ICU, the patients are unconscious or they're in a sedated coma, so they are unable to be jumping out of bed and doing their own things, readjusting themselves in the bed. Like on a regular unit, you're literally doing everything for this patient. So more than likely, if they're able to, they are getting tube feedings to meet their dietary needs. They are on a ventilator to help their respiratory needs. They have your cardiac monitoring going on. They have some type of pressors to control their blood pressure. They have a Foley in place so that you can monitor their output, their urine output. They have an IV in place, giving them fluids. You have the SCDs on, making sure that there's no blood clots that they get. You're managing every system of their body because they're unable to do it for themselves. And so it's super important that you're charting these things, because in 12 hours, you could do a whole bunch of work. And if you forget to chart that you turn the patient every 2 hours, as far as they're concerned, it never happened. So if this person gets a pressure injury, you will be responsible because you did not chart what took place. And because it's so much that you're charting every hour, as much as possible, you have to make sure that you're on it, charting some as you go. Don't wait to the end and now have to chart everything you did from the beginning of the morning down to 7 p.m. on 2 patients or 1, right? On top of that, in the event that the patient codes, they want you need to be able to say the things that you did for that patient. And if you forgot, because now it's 3 p.m. and they're like, when was the last time you gave them whatever medication, you didn't get a chance to chart it yet, as much as possible, keep up with your charting. Charting is very important. Make sure that your notes are very detailed, what you did for the patient, how they responded to it. So the ICU is actually one of the most documentation is important in general. Let's just put it like that. In any case, let's go to number 2. Number 2 kind of intertwines with number 1, and that is the importance of detail. In nursing school, we learned a head-to-toe assessment. And I remember other people saying that they never had to do a head-to-toe assessment ever again after they finished their nursing clinicals. In the ICU, you will literally do a head-to-toe assessment. You'll check their pupils to see if they're round and reactive to light, because especially for patients that have a brain injury, When you shine the light in their eyes, their pupils won't change size like it's supposed to. It won't be reactive to light like what normally happens. Sometimes their pupils will be two different sizes. One will be a bit more blown out than the other. Those are all stuff that lets them know where the person is at with their brain function. So you're literally checking that. You're checking, you're checking them for pain. You're literally doing a head to toe assessment on this patient. So detail is super important in the ICU. Like I said, you run all of these drugs and they want to collect to be sure that the output matches the input. So if you gave them 2 liters of normal saline and the person only put out 300 milliliters of urine, we have an issue. That means the person's retaining fluid somewhere. So it's supposed to balance out. For all the fluid that you ran, at the end of the shift, you have to clear your pump with the inputs. And then you're also, they'll do a calculation. The system will do a calculation for you, letting them know the outputs. So it's super important. It's not like one of them other jobs where, you just drain the Foley, dump it, who cares? No, they really want to know everything about this patient because, again, it's a lot going on and these little details make a difference. The next thing with detail, I would say, is the importance of organization. So again, you have to have a system that works for you. In home care, I have a little way that I put my sheet to set it up for the start of care. I learned that from being in the ICU. So people would either find a sheet online or make their own sheet because they would have to know every drug that's running, what IV it's running to. You want to always have at least 2 or 3 IVs on your patient. So they might have one in the left arm, the right arm. They might have one in their foot or one on their neck, whatever. They might have 2 on the right arm and one on the left. So you have to keep note how many IVs they have, where they're located, what is running in that IV, because all of those things are stuff that you'll give and report. Then even on the IV pumps, if you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, Google it. So the IV will have a big brain, right, that you type in what meds it is you're running. And then for each med that you run, at least there's different pumps. Let's start there. But the one that I like the most is Alera. And that one has the big brain, and you add the channels on for each med that you keep adding. I remember before I was a nurse and I used to see 2 poles full with like 3 brains and different channels. I used to be like, oh my goodness, who manages all this? And then when I became an ICU nurse, one day I looked up and I was like, me, I manage all this. It was like a full circle moment, right? Because when I used to do patient transport, I used to be pushing the bed like, oh my goodness, the nurse that manages all this must be so smart. And then it came my turn to do it. But the key is organization. So you see people get these little white papers like stickers, and they label the drug that they're running in each channel so that when something runs out, they know right away. It's nice and clear. You have to be clear. In the ICU, organization is super important. It's not one of them things where you could have your stuff unorganized chaos. No. Or organized chaos. No. You want it to be organized. Okay. The next thing is prepare for the worst. So your patient could be pretty stable, and in 2 seconds, they tank out or bottom out. Things change. During COVID, I had a patient that was about 30 something. He had COVID. He was not intubated. He was on a BiPAP. So he was able to, because he was alert. He wasn't unconscious like they normally are. So he kept taking off the mask to talk. And I kept telling him, listen, I don't want to have to put restraints on your hands. So please do not take the mask off anymore. Every time you remove your mask, your oxygen drops to 80 something %. Please leave it on. We'll talk in a little bit. I talked to him, we spoke, he agreed. I went to go into my next patient's room, and that was a COVID patient too, so I was gowned up, it's loud, I couldn't hear outside of the room. And I looked up and I saw people calling me. And so when I ran out, I saw my guy out. That man coded 3 times and I regret to say he did not make it. But he was just up talking, pulling off his mask, doing stuff. I had another one another time. Again, he came from a prison. This is again when COVID took place. And he was up talking. We moved him to another room. We were planning to move him to another unit once a bed opened up. The end of the shift came. I was like stocking up the rooms. And I looked up and I saw somebody calling me. And when I looked again, I guess he went to go turn, and you know, he bottomed out, his heart bottomed out. He didn't end up making it. Mind, he was good the whole shift, to the point where, like I said, IVs were starting to get removed because we were planning to move him to another unit. So things change, and so you have to always be prepared. Don't remove their IV until you're sure, you know, because they could be up today, walking, talking, and in 2 seconds things change. You want to make sure you have your room stocked for whatever emergencies that take place, whatever items that they may need. Always make sure they have it. I don't care if the person is coming in for a GI bleed. Make sure that the pads are there for the AED. Make sure everything is in your room, because the worst thing is to think that the things are there, and then now an emergency is taking place and you have to run out to go look for something. It won't be good. The next thing is teamwork, the importance of teamwork. I've worked in about 4 different ICUs. The first one, like I said, was in Louisiana. That place is where I really learned the power of teamwork. That place had its pros and its cons, but one thing that I learned and that I appreciated was their teamwork. The minute when you were getting an admission, people would be in the room with you, like at least 7 people waiting in the room for your admission to come in. They will put the person on the bed. One person will be doing the vitals. The next person will be getting their weight. The next person would be getting them into the computer. You'll have so much help. They'll get you settled with your patient, and then they'll go back to do their own thing, and then now you take it over and it's all you. Same thing where if a patient coded, the minute you press that code blue button, you'll look up, there'll be about 20 people in your room. Teamwork makes the dream work. Unfortunately, I later went to another ICU. It was at a smaller hospital. And, you know, when the person would have an admission coming up, I would go into the room. But I kept noticing I was the only person that kept going. One time that one of the nurses looked up and was like, "Hey, you need something?" And I was like, "No, I'm here to help you get your patient settled. You have someone coming, right?" And they were like, "Oh, that's nice of you. It's okay, I got it." I was like, okay. And then it got worse than that. One time it was like change of shift and a person pressed the code blue button. People kept giving report. That blew my mind. The person was in there by themselves, and then I think another doctor came in, and I was just like, still giving report? Are y'all for real? When you hear the code blue button, everybody and their mother drops what they're doing and runs to help you. What you need me to get? What you need me to do? Did you already do this? That ICU, I didn't last more than like, I think 2 months. I quit. I quit. I said, this is not the place for me. And when they asked me why, I said, quite frankly, it's not safe. This ICU is not safe. People are so overwhelmed in their work that they don't help each other out. You guys don't have teamwork. I wrote her a long thing, and she said she appreciated my feedback and she'll try to work on it. But yeah, the ICU is so critical that you got to have all hands on deck. If that's the type of attitude you have, that you don't want to help, that's not the place for you. Don't come to the ICU, because the ICU only works if everyone is helping you out. If this person has their hands full and they've been stuck in this room for 4 hours, as a nurse on the ICU team, you should come to the door and say, "Hey, do you want me to give meds for your other patient? Or do you..." That's what you got to do. You know this person has 2 patients, and you know that this person is taking up all of their time because they're not doing well and they're in there trying to save them. Then help them out so that when they come out from there, they're not behind on the other person. That needs to be the attitude. If the other person happens to be conscious and they're calling for a blanket, take the blanket. Don't go tell them, "Hey, your person is calling. I know you're busy." That's rude. Don't do that. So teamwork makes the dream work. And I learned that to carry that with me throughout every other area that I worked in as a nurse. Even though it wasn't the ICU, teamwork makes the dream work. If you don't want to help, stay home. Don't come be a lazy nurse. So the next thing is number 5. Number 5 is, yeah, like I get to talking, y'all, and I forget what number I'm even on. But number 5 is the importance of working at a fast pace. The ICU, you can't be lounging around and just, time is critical. So you have to make sure that you're doing things fast but accurately at the same time. So that's the next thing I learned, the importance of working quickly and responding quickly, keeping your cool. Even though stuff is going left, you got to remain calm. You got to think of what you're doing, but do it quickly. That's it. Comment below if you're an ICU nurse of what I missed out.